Happy New Comic Book Day, geeks, and welcome to issue 71 of the Script Heroes podcast. I'm Katie.
I'm Joseph, and today we're going to be talking about Batman and Robin issue 20, Batman Dark Patterns issue 5, Jumpscare issue 2, Laura Kinney Wolverine issue 5, The Moon is Following Us issue 8, and the brand new first issue of Amazing Spider-Man.
That's right. Hit subscribe to add our show to your pull list, and let's jump into Batman.
Batman and Robin issue 20. The writer of the series is Philip Kennedy Johnson of Action Comics and Green Lantern War Journal. We have 3 artists on this issue, none of which are the normal artists, actually, for the series, funnily enough. We have Hugo Petrus, who does the Thomas Wayne journal sequences. He's worked on Justice League, Midnighter, and Catwoman. We have Miguel Mendonca, who does the main present-day artwork. He's worked on Nightwing, Justice League, and Aquaman. Then we have Juni Ba, who does what is dubbed The Adventures of Batman and Robin, which is a little a book within the book. And he's worked on The Boy Wonder, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Monkey Meat. The colorist is Marcella Maiello, and the letter is Steve Wands. I think this is up there with one of the series we've been most roller coastery, up and down, love, hate, annoyed with, happy with. This has been a real roller coaster of a series. So I'm interested to hear how you feel about issue 20.
I do think in general, though, I don't know about you, but I've enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to when we went into it. I tend to be very, anti-Bruce and Damian as a team, because I think that they often end up either being a little bit boring or sacrificing parts of themselves so that they can foil each other a bit better. But I think that Philip Kennedy Johnson has done a really good job with their characters in this Memento arc, really looking at the differences between them and letting that cause friction, as opposed to leaning into the similarities between them. This is a really interesting issue. If you couldn't tell from the creative team, there's a lot going on in it, where there's been a big emphasis on the fact that Damian's been reading Thomas Wayne's journals, and seeing what a normal life could look like in Gotham City, and that's been informing a lot of his journey as Robin. And we actually get to see those journals here, which I thought were really well illustrated. I think they were really well done on the page. They felt really tactile to me in a way that I think worked super well. It almost felt like the most
young Bruce on that first page creeps me out the way that old art creeps me out, which is not an indictment of design, because it's how that classic art look. But that classic child face creeps me the fuck out.
Here's the thing: Bruce Wayne is a wealthy boy child. He's gonna look creepy as a child. That's just how it works. But I think that it felt the most analogous to almost a video game cutscene type thing. It felt like an interactive bit of story that you would get from reading a video game, which was kind of reflected later than when we see this comic that Damian's been drawing, which is when we jump into Juni Ba's art, and we again get this incredibly immersive look. It is a wild thing to pull, just in the middle of a book, but I think that it actually worked pretty well for me, because this issue didn't seem to be particularly concerned with moving forward. It feels like perhaps it was a filler issue, perhaps it might have had a different direction to go in if maybe the artist needed a break or something. It didn't feel like this was a necessary part of the plot, but to me it ended up being a welcome one. And I think that's something that we've talked about before when we look at limited series versus ongoings. With an ongoing series, you can get away with throwing a weird issue in the middle of it, because you have that time, and I'm not super pressed about the pacing of it, because I know that story is unfolding, and I kind of just get to go along on this episodic ride.
Yeah, it's not like a 4 or 5 issue mini where you're we just wasted a fourth of this book or a fifth of this book on this.
Exactly, yeah. So I really quite liked it. I think that I had a couple of really minor gripes, one of which was the lettering on Thomas Wayne's journal.
It's hard to read.
It's a little hard to read, and they go with this script typeface, to make it look like Thomas Wayne's writing, but because it's a typeface, all of the letters are like individually done, like they're all segmented, and that
Yeah.
like bothered me really weirdly. Which Steve Wands is an incredibly talented letterer. Like we've read a ton of stuff of him. This is
Steve
just
Wands is
like
a great letter.
yeah, this was just a rare misstep for me where I was like, I am distracted by the lettering, which is never a good thing to feel. And then my other little gripe, I think, can be attributed to it being a little bit more of a filler issue. I feel like there are a lot of emotions just on the page, as opposed to like being interpreted or expressed through, some sort of action or statement. Instead, we get to look at this Damien comic book that he's essentially used as a diary, and he's like incredibly, which I think does fit Damien, that he's incredibly high level aware of his feelings. It just throws me off a little bit that he's able to communicate them so clearly. So like he's a little weirdo. Like I liked all the stuff that was going on there. I just didn't love it as a Damien has written this on the page type of thing.
No, that's fair. I'm gonna start with my gripes because one, it segments good from yours, and two, I like to start with the gripes so I can get to. Because overall, I did really like this issue.
Mm-hmm.
Funnily, I actually had the opposite thing with the Damien book, where I was like, I just thought it was kind of weird that Damien drew a comic book. Like, I was like, I don't know that I buy
I do
Damien
think
doing that.
historically Damien has like been an artsy kid. Like I think that he draws a lot. Whether that translates directly to comic books or not is
like drawing. I don't know, like drawing like a story, but like I think it like more than like it's like him like like building a story thing was like weird to me. I don't know. Anyway,
that's fair.
That's my thing. But my main gripe with this issue is actually the placement. I think this issue needed to happen earlier. Because I think it breaks up what was a really like tense moment, and this is like the search for
Robin's
Damien now.
missing, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like it breaks up that intensity a little bit, which is actually where even in an ongoing, I think an issue like this can disrupt the flow a little bit. But two, because I think, not to speak for you, but I think our like collective main gripe for this book was that a lot of the Damien stuff was good, but it felt like it was coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like his character work and his motivations weren't established for all of this tension to make sense. This is establishing all of it. This is giving us that full backstory of his motivation. I think this is such an important issue for Damien's motivation in this series, and I think that's amazing. I think that's really going to help the book moving forward. But I think so many of the issues before, like especially the last issue, but like the last 2 issues or 3 issues, how many issues it's been since he quit being Robin?
Yeah.
I think if this had come first, those issues would have been so much stronger. That's fair. my main gripe. But overall, I agree with you. I thought the Thomas Wayne Journal was cool, despite the lettering being a little bit off. I think even the Batman sequence, I think, are the like weakest part because they're like the part that's unable to move forward. But I still think there's cool stuff there. I really like the I'm sorry, 3 artists makes it hard to remember. Miguel Mendonca, I really liked his artwork on it. I thought it was really, really great. And then Junie Ba is we've talked about how fantastic he is with like emotion and energy, and it really, really fit this type of like storybook thing in the end. So this book just looks amazing start to finish. And we get a lot of the motivation and the stuff for Damien that I feel like we've been lacking in this book, and it's been so necessary. So overall, I was a huge fan of this issue, but I really, really wish we got something like this earlier in this run.
I think that's a super fair point, and I absolutely see where you're coming from, for sure. But this is not the only Batman book that we have this week.
It's true.
It's time to go talk about Batman Dark Patterns. Batman Dark Patterns number 5. This is coming to us from writer Dan Watters of Nightwing, Lucifer, and the Six Fingers, and artist Hayden Sherman of Absolute Wonder Woman, Chicken Devil, and Detective Comics. The colorist is Triona Farrell, and the letterer is Frank Chvedovic. Jay. Batman Dark Patterns. It's been a weird ride. It's been an interesting ride.
Yeah.
Which I think fits this creative team very well. Weird and interesting.
Yes, absolutely does.
We are on issue 2 now of the second arc. I'm sorry, yes, part 2 of the second arc, where
which are 3-part arcs.
Yeah, where Scarface is a building, which is certainly weird.
I want to start with, and I'm upset because neither one of us has a physical to hold up, but maybe I'll stick it in the editing on the screen. I just call out this issue for having such a good cover. The cover of this issue is beautiful, and I wish I didn't leave my physical downstairs so I could show it to people, but it's such a good cover. But in any case, to talk about this issue, I think we said in the last issue that this was such a cool setup
Mhm.
for this new arc, for this new villain, for Scarface to be here. I love this issue. I love what they're doing with Scarface. I think it's
Yeah.
so cool. It's so rad. I like it being this tighter time frame compared to the last one, where it's like
Yes,
Batman is
very much
trapped in
so.
this building. We really get to see everything. I feel like especially when you're doing these non-mainline books like this, it's in the main continuity, but it's not like
Yeah.
the current ongoing. So like you don't have to be worried about like covering the same amount of time as other books or anything like that. Like you can
Mhm.
keep it tight. This is a series that fits wherever it fits, so it doesn't matter how much time you take up. So I really really like that here. I really like Batman in this issue. I really like uh, just the way that it makes Gotham feel like it has a big focus on the civilians, and I
Mhm.
think that is done really really great. And then we go to something really really cool happening at the end of this issue that I think is so phenomenally well executed, and it's just a really cool idea.
Mhm.
So I
A
really
great
love this
reveal.
issue top to bottom. Yeah, great reveal. It's such a good issue, and this Scarface building idea was such a good
So
idea.
fun. Cuz like it's so I feel like Dan Watters has been doing a really good job of cuz in Nightwing as well, doing things that feel really like in the universe but original. Like he does things that don't feel like he's, imposing on the Batman mythos, but instead doing it in a like cool way that doesn't feel like you're reading the same stories that you've always read.
It's just like
Uh,
he's like twisting it a little bit,
mhm.
He's like,
Just a slightly different angle to look at something from. And one thing that I've really loved, and one thing that I think makes this series feel like kind of like really classic-y Batman, is Bruce Wayne doesn't exist in this world, basically. Like,
yeah,
both of the stories we've had, it's been Batman doing Batman things. We haven't had to worry about,
yep.
like, the Bat family, or, like, his tensionous relationships with people as Bruce Wayne. It's been just nothing but crime fighting. And I think that's been, and, like, with Gordon there, but Gordon there in a very, like, enabling the crime fighting way, which I think has been such a breath of
I
fresh
really
air.
like this Gordon. I think
Me
he's been
too.
very well done. Yeah.
Mm, Definitely agree. I gotta shout it out every single time. Hayden Sherman does the most ridiculous page layouts, and they just work so well. Like, there's that meme going around of Marco Cicchetto drawing Spider-Man from the same angle every time to like make Peter Parker
Yeah,
look hot,
yeah, I've
and
seen
like
that.
it works. Shout out Marco Cicchetto for making the hot Ultimate Spider-Man. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like Hayden Sherman has the exact opposite approach, where it's like, I'm gonna draw these characters from the weirdest angles. You're never gonna see them from the same angle twice, because the way that they design a page creates such weird, you know, composition spaces for panels.
Shapes, whatever you
There's
want.
this
Yeah.
beautiful page where he's talking to this mother and her daughter, a series of pages, but there's like a really fun layout thing where you see two big panels of Batman and then the mom's like little response in a little circular panel in between that just
And
doesn't
they're
look like
weirdly
comics
shaped
normally
panels
look.
too. They're like
Yeah,
diamonds, I guess is what you'd call them, or cut off diamonds.
right? Like Hayden Sherman is so willing to just have fun on the page, which I think is super refreshing. And one of the reasons that I've loved their art, like since Chicken Devil, it's just so distinct, it's so stylized, it's so them. It's just super duper cool. And speaking again to Dan Watters and like you were saying about the civilians, I think that interaction with the mom and the kid was so great. Because we see this Batman, we talked about it a lot in the previous arc, where this Batman operates in the shadows a lot, and again, a very like kind of classic Batman way. But then in this, we see he's not trying to scare this kid and her mom, who aren't, putting on Scarface masks and trying to shoot him. And
Yeah.
he like has a little cup of orange juice with the or iced tea with this girl, and it's so sweet and cute and like humanizing without making him take his mask off, which I think is just such a it's something that you don't see a ton of anymore.
Yeah. No, it was very well executed, I think. It was a great issue. I think so far, I think this arc is shaping up to be even better than the first one.
Mhm.
where it was very good, but I think we had a few minor gripes. This I think
Yeah.
is really addressing those, in a way of them like actually hearing it, but just like it feels like it's course correcting, or they're getting more comfortable with the
Yeah.
characters and with the world and with what they're doing, and I think it's coming out really really great. But we're
Absolutely
jumping to
agreed.
the other big two publisher now, and the other big character,
That's right.
with Spider-Man in Amazing Spider-Man issue. Amazing Spider-Man issue 1. The writer of this book is Joe Kelly of Deadpool, JLA, and X-Men. We have 2 artists on this book. We have Pepe Larraz, who does the main book. He's worked on Avengers, Star Wars, and X-Men. Then the pencils on the backup are John Romita Jr. of Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Thor, and the inks on that backup are Scott Hanna. The colorists are Marty Gracia and Marcio Meniz doing the backup, and the letter is Joe Caramagna. Katie, this is the first mainline Spider-Man we've ever done on the pod. We did
Yes.
a little bit of the original Amazing Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man rather, and we've of course been doing the current Ultimate Spider-Man. We've never done a main continuity Spider-Man book, and I don't know about you. I think this is the first time I've ever read a main continuity Spider-Man book.
I mean, certainly the only time I've read it, like, as it's coming out. Like, I've read isolated stories, but I read The Last Hunt. I've read, I read the Parker Luck, which was, like, the Dan Slott
first one. I've read a couple issues of Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man.
But in any case, definitely our first time reading Spider-Man as it's been coming out, like, with our finger on the pulse of Spider-Man. I feel like this was a pretty decent introduction to the series. I know that this is coming off of a pretty long Spider-Man series that they just like kind of stopped and renumbered, if I'm not mistaken.
No, this is a new writer, I believe.
Right, but it's kind of like there wasn't a big gap or anything between.
No, there was no big. They're not gapping with ASM.
No.
Don't be silly.
So it is picking up where that previous series left us, but it gave us a good framework for understanding where Peter is through the also quite funny series of interviews that he goes through. And so we get to see these like little bits of his life so far in this continuity, and get little glimpses of it so that we have a sense of where this Peter is before we get to where he's gonna, really jump off in this series. I think that Kelly did a really good job with writing the humor of Spider-Man, which I know is something that you and I often disagree on in terms of amount and style. So I'm curious to know how you felt about this. But I think that he did a good job with like the type of quipping that he did and like the frequency of quipping, especially because we were seeing a lot of these in either like flashback or very brief fights. I think that helped the momentum of those quite a bit.
I fully agree with that. It didn't nothing bothered me in this because there was no point where I felt like he needed to be serious or like he should have been. And actually, there is one point where I think it got a little serious, and then he did get a little serious when that happened. So I thought the quipping was very well handled in this issue.
Which like it feels a little goofy to talk about, but is like a really important part of Spider-Man's identity. Is like he's someone who has a lot of personality on the battlefield. Yeah, I think that generally it did a pretty good job with that. The real misstep I had in terms of like the world that we're stepping into is with Peter's group of friends. Like I didn't know if those were supposed to be people that I already knew or if those were people who I was supposed to kind of like brush off or
they were on like the like title page splash with their names, so it feels like they're important.
Right.
Especially the girl who he seems to be maybe in a relationship with, kind of.
Yeah. So there was a lot of interpersonal history there that I felt completely in the dark about. But that's not like the biggest the biggest loss.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of hard to not do that with supporting casts that aren't like iconic. Like or do we expect them to throw like a big explanation and like, how do I know this person, and like a friend,
Right, yeah.
I agree, I can accept that.
I do think it's one of those instances where a really well done caption box of like, this is their name, this is what you need to know about them, just like a little one-liner about them or something, where it can be really, really useful, but it wasn't really the vibe of this book, so I understand why that.
I do think there was like some effort, but like I thought the effort when it came to his like maybe girlfriend to like, because it felt like there was very specifically a couple lines of dialogue to try to explain to us what
Yeah,
their
that they're
relationship was.
like
I thought
kind
it
of
came
together,
off
but not quite.
very like cringy and rough, whereas like that
Yeah,
felt rough. I did not like that interaction, and it kind of
yeah.
makes me never want to see her again. But I'll
But
ignore that. It's not her fault.
the interpersonal relationship that soared was Aunt May. I think Aunt May was great in this. I really
Oh, I thought you were
loved
gonna say his
the
old buddy from school.
from junior
'Cause
high.
I
That
enjoyed
was
that.
also
Yeah,
very
a
cute.
lot.
But that
Yeah.
one I also don't feel like I needed, context for.
Oh, that
But
that felt like
yeah,
I have a feeling
a
he
new
wasn't here
addition.
before.
Yeah,
Like that felt like we
exactly.
were introduced to him in
Mhm.
like his first time popping up.
But in terms of characters who we're supposed to know things about,
Yeah.
May was such a star for me. I think that I love an Aunt May who's like kind of jovial and like no shade to because obviously we've engaged more with Spider-Man movies because we haven't done very much Spider-Man reading. Uh but like the Aunt May of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans like makes me sad. Just because she just seems so elderly. Uh Whereas I think this is a very kind of like youthful and joyful May, which is the type of Aunt May that I like to see.
Like if you're talking personality, sure, she's certainly not like a young Aunt May,
No,
especially in
no,
a
no, no,
world
no,
of
no.
young Aunt Mays
No,
being
that's
like
what I'm
a
saying.
new
I say
thing.
I feel like Tobey Maguire Aunt May, she has a name, and I at one point knew it. Uh, but
You mean the actress? Her name is
yeah,
Aunt May.
no, the actress.
Oh,
Like I
okay.
think
Yeah, I
she's a
don't
very
know.
iconic person, and I just don't remember who she is. But she like feels old in those movies to
Yeah,
me. But this isn't an Aunt May who feels old. Uh,
yeah,
she's like cute and has personality beyond just like nice grandma figure.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I feel like you. I'm not gonna go too in depth because I feel like I actually I agree with pretty much everything you said. But my couple things that I want to hit on here. Firstly, I really like Pepe Larraz's Spider-Man art. Like when he's out
Hmm.
Spider-Manning, real big fan of that. Think it looks great. I do need to say, in the civilian sections, I don't love the way he does faces, especially Peter's face.
Hmm.
So that's a little bit of a turn off for me reading the book.
That's valid.
Um, because it's like a constant thing. He feels like he's from one of those old Christmas animations with like the rosy cheeks and the like perfectly smooth face. I'm like, I don't know about that, man. Um, but that being said, we'll put that to the side for a second. I think this was a solid setup issue, and I gotta say, the one thing I really like is that it set up Hobgoblin to be the main villain of this arc. And as somebody who's read Zero Spider-Man, I've always really liked Hobgoblin based solely on how cool his design is.
I like him because he throws pumpkins, and that is camp.
Yeah, he feels fun. I like Hobgoblin. I think a lot of Spider-Man fans don't like Hobgoblin because if I understand Hobgoblin correctly, he's kind of a mess, and there's like 18 different people who have been Hobgoblin, and they
I
constantly
think when he
retcon.
was introduced, it was a mess.
Yeah, like they
Even
constantly have retconned who's like the real Hobgoblin, and so that makes people not a big fan of Hobgoblin. But I'm not a part of that, so I think
exactly,
he's cool.
we're fresh. We're ready for
Yeah, I'm ready for this
the
Hobgoblin.
orange
And with
gobbo.
in a world where Norman Osborn seems to be in one of his I'm no longer a bad guy states. Because don't read a lot of Spider-Man, I do know enough to know that that's been a cycle I think that's happened
Yeah,
a couple times. But when he's in good guy mode, it makes a lot of sense for Hobgoblin to arise, So I think thumbs up on that front. I like the villain that is being set up. I think the world's being set up in a cool way. Um, yeah, it was a solid issue.
it was a successful issue one.
Yeah.
If you are a Spider-Man fan, how do you feel about the cycle of Norman Osborn? And that applies to other characters as well. We've seen it with Catwoman. We've seen it with a lot of these kind of like anti-hero and anti-villain types where they really kind of fluctuate on where they land identity-wise. Do you
Yeah, I
like it
don't
when
know if
characters get
anybody
to move
goes as
between?
like again, not as much, but just from like, I don't know if anybody switches from like the extremes the way Norman does. Like Catwoman's like, oh, maybe she's gonna lean Annie villain or she's gonna lean Annie here. Maybe she'll go full hero with it. But that, same thing with Harley Quinn. Where like
Hmm.
Norman polar, like I will never hurt a
He
fly. I
has
want to
the
help
benefit
everybody, or
of
I will destroy Spider-Man. And
he has the benefit of, I believe, a personality disorder.
yeah,
Not to say that
I
Harley
think
Quinn
fair.
does not have a personality disorder, but just a different one. But yeah, how do you
Uh,
feel about characters who switch allegiances like that? Let us know down below, and we can have a nice chat about where these characters actually belong. Because there must be a black and white answer.
yeah. So let's talk about Laura Kinney, Wolverine.
Laura Kinney, Wolverine, number 5. This is coming to us from writer Erica Schultz of Daredevil, Rat City, and Xena, Warrior Princess. The artist is Giada Belviso of Jackpot and Black Cat, Miss Marvel, and Blood Hunters. The colorist is Rochelle Rosenberg, and the letter is Corey Petit. Jay, we are on our soul searching field trip with Bucky Barnes currently. Uh,
Is this like the Zuko field trips, and it's just with
I
Laura Kinney
think Laura
instead?
Kinney Wolverine is in fact
Yeah,
Zuko, and she's
yeah.
going on her soul finding field trips with all of her little misfits.
That tracks.
Yeah.
Um, I think we had talked when we talked about the last issue. I said that it had gotten me hyped for this issue, but I wasn't a huge fan of
Hmm.
issue 4.
Yeah. It had a
I
lot
am a huge
of
fan of this
preamble.
issue. What?
The
Sorry.
previous one had a lot of preamble leading up to where we
Yes.
got to in this one.
Yeah, and not even preamp. Like we it was kind of a side quest
Side
in like
quest,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah,
weird for a 2-issue arc.
yeah. Exactly. But this issue finally gets into it. We get like what I think is the first real villain of this book, like a villain who feels like a straight up villain and like less of a
Yeah.
entity or like part of a group or something.
Hmm.
Like we get a good old fashioned supervillain, which is like a
We
nice
got
change
good
of
old
pace.
fashioned superheroes punching Nazis.
Yeah, yeah. So that was nice. It's a full issue of like action and intensity and actually like revolving around the plot and solving a problem and save like it just finally has all those pieces. Whereas I feel like a lot of the issues of Laura Kinney so far have had like some of the pieces, but not
Hmm.
quite all of them. This is the first issue where I feel like everything I want is actually here. We get
Yeah.
good character work, we get good action, we have a villain who I think despite very limited screen time, was actually pretty, well built out.
Hmm.
This is an issue that I think for the first time in the series actually like really makes use of space as good as possible. Like a lot of
Yeah.
the issues I think spend too long on something where they gloss over something that needs more time. This is a very well paced issue. I really like Bucky and Laura's dynamic, which I think was one thing that we were really high on in the last issue, where
Right.
like this dynamic actually works really well. And I really like the way that the dynamic is kind of wrapped up in this book, and then we get
Hmm.
a little cliffhanger
Yeah.
for the next arc. So that works really well too. And yeah, overall, this is a simple. I feel like this series in general has had very simple issues, which is something that I
Hmm.
appreciate sometimes.
Right.
Um, but this is a really good simple issue. Like it's
Hmm.
just well done. It's not overly complicated. Works.
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with you. The one gripe that I've found more and more as the series has gone on is I'm not the biggest fan of Belviso's art. I think that has like it has like a really kind of spongy quality to it that I think might work better in like a less kind of serious book. Like there are a few little quippy lines from Laura and stuff, but it never feels like this book is trying to be like a really light-hearted jaunt. Like Laura's constantly bringing up like her struggles with identity and stuff, which is good, and I like that character work. But I feel like it contrasts a lot with the art sometimes, where it feels very kind of like I don't know. It's like fun art. I think that it's really bouncy art,
Yeah,
but not very like
that's a lot of energy.
exactly. And I feel like
Yeah,
this is a book that has like bursts of energy, but then
yeah.
that energetic art in the like more serious scenes where she's like talking with these other pretty serious characters, it throws off my like my on the page tone a little bit.
I agree with you. I want to give some slight credit for when we get to the most serious moment of the issue.
Yeah,
Belviso does go full silhouette, and it
which
works
I think is a
really well
really good choice. Yeah.
for that moment. It's a
Hmm.
very stationary, impactful, silhouetted moment. But I think in general, you're right that a lot of the serious moments don't quite land with this art style.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was the right move for when we got to the really serious moments. So I wanted to credit that, because it's like knowing your strengths, doing something to make it work in the moment. But yeah, I agree with you, that I think that the art maybe doesn't always match the tone perfectly
Mm-hmm.
in this book.
And I also I really like the dynamics between Elektra and Laura and Bucky and Laura. I do feel like I don't remember if we talked about this on pod or off,
I think.
but I feel like there's
Oh yeah, I know we talked
a
about it. I don't know
big
if we brought it
sense
up.
of like these are characters who could be guides for Laura as characters who are like kind of older, more established characters who have gone through the same thing she's gone through and could be like these really good guiding forces for her. And like it feels so intentional that it's Elektra and Bucky who she's gone on these adventures with. And I feel like we don't quite get to, like you were saying, these are pretty simple issues, so we don't
Yeah,
quite get to like the examination of that. And in this issue, I'm going to talk around it a little. It's that same moment that Jay was talking about.
the big
Uh,
thing that we don't want to spoil.
yeah, it's a
I
really
like the way
big
that was done.
thing. I like the way it was done, but I feel like with the dynamic of the two of them, it felt a little backwards. Kind of going back to what we're saying with I was joking that it's Laura being Zuko taking
So that's fair.
these people on their life-changing adventures. But like it feels like Laura should be the one being taken on life-changing adventures as the kind
That's
of
very
like
fair.
fish out of water trying to discover who she is character in the book.
Yeah,
So that's like
yeah,
those are my little gripes. I do really like the book though. I think that Laura's a really charming character, and I think that the actual like in the moment interactions between her and these characters are really well done, and the writing is really really strong. And I do like the art again, just not quite for the tone of this book. But I do
yeah.
think it's a really fun series. I'm really excited to go on the next adventure with her with our mystery
Yeah, I
next.
agree. But why don't you let us know who you liked seeing Laura paired with
Yeah.
more, Elektra or Bucky? Um,
And who
which
would you pair her up with if you had 2 issues to write a little mini arc for her to go on a
yeah,
life changing
because it
adventure
seems
with?
like it's gonna keep happening for at
Yeah.
least the next little bit of the series. It should have been called Wolverine team up. But
In any case, we have 2 more books to talk about. We have 2 more books to talk about. Let's go over to Jumpscare.
Jumpscare issue 2. This is coming us from writer Cullen Bunn of Magneto, The Sixth Gun, and Harrow County. The artist is Danny Luckhart of Regression, The Red Mother, and The Space Between, and the letter is Jim Campbell. We quite enjoyed the first issue of this series, despite us not typically being fans of the Deadpool Harley Quinn mold of character
Yeah,
that
yeah,
this
like the
character is
kind
clearly
of
inspired from.
tongue-in-cheek fourth wall breaking. Though she doesn't quite break the fourth wall. Uh,
Yeah, no, but
she
like the
just
pop culture
yeah,
reference, and though her pop
exactly.
culture
Yeah,
references are mostly or
I
entirely
think they
fake.
are completely fictional. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't remember from the first issue if
There
she did
might be
anything
some
real.
homages or something that just go over our heads as not big horror
Well,
movie
there was
people.
the homage to Freddy Krueger in this one.
Right, the chainsaw glove.
Yeah,
Uh Freddy Krueger and Leatherface. Uh
yeah,
if they had a little baby. Um but yeah, this is a part of a larger universe, and I feel like that first issue did such a good job of not relying on that universe to give context for stuff. And then we do get a little bit of that universe coming in this issue, but not in a way that feels like disorienting or anything,
no, but there were
because
certainly more references that felt more
yes.
connected to it as somebody who has read. The title was slipping my mind for a second. Beyond Mortal is the name
Yeah.
of the OGN.
Yeah, and so it did feel like because Jumpscare herself doesn't know a lot of this stuff, it
Yeah,
did feel like a little you're kind of along for the ride with her. There is a little bit of absurdity that comes with that, like the way that she reacts to things sometimes doesn't quite make sense until she gives her line of dialogue of like, there are a lot more people with the Lazarus stuff or whatever lately. And it's like, okay, that kind of gives me that bit of information like right away with it. So I think it still does a good job of being like really approachable, but I definitely felt the greater universe of it all in this issue more so than the previous one.
absolutely.
But I also think that this issue did a lot of good things that the previous one did as well. So like it brought over a lot of the good stuff, like the way she's characterized with her family, And I think that we get a couple of really good looks at like who she is as a person, because we got a really kind of stereotypical mold of her. Like, we got the most like bare bones look at her in the first issue, because they were also focused on delivering on a lot of the other things that the book does well, like the fun action, the exciting like kills, and the fun weaponry, and the like world mechanics of that. So they had a lot to tackle in that first issue, and so we get a lot deeper, a lot more of a deeper look at her character in this one, especially as she looks back on who she is, as opposed to watching her in flashback. So by her examining who she used to be, we get to learn more about who she is now.
Yeah, and I feel like I would just touch up because it's directly
Yeah,
related.
please.
To, one of my favorite things about Jumpscare versus a Deadpool or a Harley Quinn is it feels like she has a little bit more like she wrestles a little bit more with like her being that type of character.
Mm-hmm.
Like she seems to actually like be concerned about sometimes how she reacts to things, where she's like, oh wait, there's something that she does in that I don't want to spoil because it's actually just such a like funny but also like shocking, like just there's a really cool but then basically after she sits there for a minute and she's like, I can't remember exactly what she says, but it's some line of like essentially, am I just like fucked up, like am I not
Yeah.
okay, is there something wrong with me, am I am I just a slasher
Am I
instead of a
just a
hero?
slasher?
That was
Yeah.
the line. I was like, that one that fits the character so well on a tone level,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also just like such a good line for this type of character. Like you don't usually see Deadpool like when he's slashing through people being like, oh no, am I a bad person for like
Well, the thing
enjoying
is,
murdering these people?
I think the important thing is that you do get those lines, but they're always done in like a like, oh no, am I a bad person? Oh, isn't it funny that I'm a bad person? And it's like they are not
Yeah.
dealing with it. It's delivered as a joke. Whereas she takes it
Yeah.
very seriously here, and it's like a
Yeah.
really good emotional beat, like you're saying. But yeah,
It
how did you
makes it
feel
better
about the
because
rest
like
of the issue?
the thing that gets annoying with those characters is that they don't feel anything, they don't care about
Mm-hmm.
anything. So like at some point it stacks up to a point where you're just like, why do I care anymore? Because they don't care. And
Right.
there's no but Jumpscare does care, and she does
Mm-hmm.
have three dimensionality. She's not just the surface level, quippy, whatever. Like she has that extra layer to her, and it really felt like that's what this issue was about. Like I felt like
Right.
this issue was about giving that extra layer to her, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I have to, despite this being one of my favorite creative teams, like there's always that thing of like when I trust a writer, it doesn't bother me as much, so I trust that's
Right.
not going
Yeah.
to be a problem. But I want to still call it out because I feel like it's unfair when I don't for my favorite writers.
For sure.
This is an issue that doesn't really move the main plot forward a ton. It's a little bit more stationary. We end the last issue with her finding out that her sister is, captured, and this
Mm-hmm.
issue is mainly about her deciding not to go save her right away. And of course, that kind of arcs in this issue, and that sets up our arc. But that means that we get one less issue actually dedicated to that.
Right.
So that is something that I would usually point out because it is something to maybe be concerned about when it comes to a miniseries. Will they
Mm-hmm.
cover that ground? Cullen Bunn's a writer who I trust incredibly well, that he does know what he's doing and he's going to do it. And I think because this issue did so much for the character and for making me
Exactly.
care about the character, I'm very forgiving of it. But I felt the need to still say that like this issue doesn't move the overarching plot forward a ton, at least in like a physical,
Right. Yeah.
way, more of an emotional
Mm-hmm.
arcing in this issue.
What I will say is a slight pushback on that, because I do agree. It's one of those weird things where the negative space, like her
See world
not,
building too, I should say.
yeah, but her not moving forward does prompt something that I think is going to
That's true.
become, like, her not taking immediate action is part of what's going to, have consequence, which I think
Fair.
also
That's
really
fair.
helps it. Like, there's a lot of reasons why
No,
this
no,
issue works.
that's a fair
Yeah, yeah,
pushback.
yeah, yeah. I just want to
But I
make sure
feel like
that you don't
that's part of
overcorrect
this
yourself.
this create like that's part of Cullen Bunn knowing what he's doing with taking
Exactly.
the break here.
I just want to make sure that you don't, overcorrect yourself too much, because
No.
it
That's
works
super fair.
sometimes
I love
to
this
take
issue.
that beat. Yeah.
Cullen Bunn, one of my favorite writers. He's so
Mhm.
phenomenal. He knows what he's doing when he plots this stuff out, and it's really great. And P. Lucker is quickly becoming an artist that I absolutely love.
Really,
Like
really, really gorgeous.
so phenomenal. Beyond Mortal and Jumpscare are the only things that I've read of his, but he does such a good job. It's such a good art style for this because it genuinely does blend like really good stuff of like I'm saying Cthulhuan, but that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say
Eldritch?
Eldritch is what I was thinking of.
Lovecraftian?
Lovecraftian, thank you. That's
There
what
you
I
go.
was going for. Lovecraftian and like superhero, and it's like a
Mhm.
good middle ground that can like hit on the strengths of both of those different
Yeah, and I think it
aesthetics.
does a really good job with portraying violence without making it like particularly gory. Like this is not a book that shies away from blood or grossness in any
No,
way.
not at
Like
all.
she cuts a man's hands off. Like it's
Yeah.
rad. And
Oh, yeah.
like we read the issue of the boys, it's issue one of the boys, where there's a similar hand situation, and like
Yeah.
that was gross. This just looks good. Uh, I had a lot of thoughts about the art of the boys.
I think is it Derek Robertson? I think is the boy's art. I
Maybe
think something
so.
like that.
Uh, I'm sure we
I
say
might
it
be butchering
in
that.
our top comic book deaths videos. So be sure to check those out if you want more thoughts on art in the boys and other iconic deaths. But yeah, have you been reading Jumpscare? Did you read Beyond Mortal before doing so? And do you feel that if you didn't read it, that you'd be a little bit lost, or that you think that it really enhances it? We're coming at it from two different perspectives here, so it's good to
Derek
compare
Robertson.
notes.
Sorry, I had to look it up
He was
because
he
I
was
was
distracted. Uh,
sorry.
that's all right. That's all right. We love a fact checker booth. Um, but yeah, we have one more book to talk about, and it is crowd favorite, The Moon is Following Us. The Moon is Following Us, number 8. The writer-artist here is Daniel Warren Johnson of Transformers, Dude Powerbomb, Wonder Woman, Dead Earth. The main artist on the book, they share duties on a lot of books, but Riley Rossmo really uh, uh, takes most of the pie on this one. Riley Rossmo has worked on Harley Quinn, Detective Comics, and Bedlam. The colorist is Mike Spicer, and the letterer is Sean Lee. Jay, we love The Moon is Following Us. There's no sugarcoating it. What an insane fucking cliffhanger at the end of the last issue.
Yep.
Jeez Louise. How do you feel
Yeah.
about issue 8?
You know, I feel like the shorter the blurbs get for this book, and in case you're unaware, the blurb for this book is like 6 words long for this issue.
He's a
The
liar, it's
shorter
9.
they get, the more shit happens in the issue. Like it's truly a wild thing. But I appreciate they like do their best to really spoil nothing, which is very
Yeah.
nice. This is a buck wild issue. We get more backstory, or not necessarily backstory, but we get more of the motivation of our main villain here, which
Mm-hmm.
is really, really great. I can never remember his name, so I'm not even gonna try.
Valid.
We get a lot of character being built. We get more flashbacks as we always get, which is great. And then it all builds up to something that we can't even talk around because, boy, that we can't talk about it. But holy shit, this book knows how to play with your emotions and then deliver its end punch,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what it did here in spectacular fashion. But this
Oh
is
yeah.
this is really like one of the best looking books on the shelf every single month. The art from Rossmo and Daniel Warren Johnson is fantastic. The way that they blend, they do a lot of pages where they both do different
Yeah.
panels, which is just a crazy thing to do because it makes it a lot more work because they actually have
Like,
to
what
like
is that
communicate
workflow?
with like they 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 really craft this book together in such an incredible
Mm-hmm.
way. This was another great issue. Um, yeah, I love it. I just want to talk about the one thing that I can't talk about, so I'm just
Right?
gonna pass
It's
it to you
just,
so that I
it's
don't talk
because we
about it.
get a big reveal about Duncan at the end of the last book. We
Yeah,
something quite dark with him, and the way that they weave it throughout this issue is so well done because Daniel Warren Johnson is illustrating these flashback sequences that are, like Jay's saying, sometimes just a couple of the panels on the page or sometimes a full page. We see the way that it was being dealt with back in like the quote unquote real world, and then we see the way that's being reflected and how it's being dealt with now, and it's so rad, the way that they're able to like weave those stories together. It really feels like such a team fucking book here. Like everybody's working on the same team, everyone's firing on all the same cylinders. It's super
absolutely.
cool.
What we talked about in the last thing I want to bring back here is like the way that they just like weave like here we're gonna throw you the flashback to introduce this idea and then show you how it plays out in the dream world,
Yeah.
and like it being played around what's their daughter's name?
Penny.
Penny, right? It being built around like Penny's imagination and things that Penny created, and then like the way that they can then use that, be like, okay, if Penny likes something, it's going to be good in this world. If
Yeah.
Penny dislikes something, it's going to be bad. If Penny thinks something's dangerous, it's going to be dangerous. Like, I love that conceptually so much because it makes so much sense and it can be used so incredibly well to the benefits of the characters and the
Mhm.
plot and the story. It's awesome, and it's done really, really well in this issue.
And I think Daniel Warren Johnson, when writing specifically, does such a good job of capturing like the illogical way that child brain works. Like nothing in it is nothing straightforward when it's gone
No.
through Penny's subconscious, and that makes sense as you're like experiencing the world for the first time as a child. You don't have all of the context for all of these things, so they are so different in this reality. I will say I do have a gripe with the book, and I think it's been like a couple issues coming. I feel like Sam had her really good moment with her mom, and now she just like kind of understands the world and is good at it. Like I know that we got a lot of like hard-headedness from her at the start, and I understand that that was sort of resolved. She had like her big moment where she dealt with her mother's death. And so like I can appreciate that that is a time when you know, maybe her character arc is in its downswing. Like she's had her big moment. But I do think that in a book where you have kind of two central characters, it's tough to let one of them resolve so far ahead of the other one. Like you kind of want to see them go through that together and help each other through that.
That's fair. I think this is super fair, right?
Yeah. Because it also makes it a little weird for Duncan, because he had the understanding perspective first, and now that he's had this like triggering moment, he's kind of regressed. So it's something that I feel like on paper makes sense for like where their emotional states are and how they interact with the world. But in practice, I don't know that it works as well. It just kind of leaves me feeling a little.
It plays out a little odd.
Yeah. So that's the gripe that I've that has kind of simmered up over the past couple issues. But it's by no means a big one, and it's just still such a good, powerful book. It's gorgeous, it's silly, and it's serious and heartfelt, all in one package. It's so great.
We got only 2 issues left of this bad boy. Because it's a 10-issuer instead of a 12-issuer, weirdly.
Which is crazy. Give me 12 issues, please. I'll buy them, I swear.
There's something when you get to like some of these creative, and we talk about it all the time, like Robert Kirkman and stuff, like, but like when you just have such control over, like, you are that kind of, you can kind of do whatever you want. And Daniel Warren Johnson, I think, has really reached the level in the industry where he can do whatever he wants. And I think it just really then speaks to like not doing anything based on like what's good for issue counts or what's the standard. Like it's just like this is how long we needed to tell the story, and that's how long we're taking to tell the story, which is like really nice because it means that's like true to the art instead of being like cut into whatever is needed for like a publisher.
Exactly, because I feel like there's like the kind of two identities of editorial, where one is like you're editing the book, you're helping craft the story, all that good stuff, and then there's the side of editorial that's like, well, I am the middleman between you and the people with the money, and so we have to make this work for the people who have the money. And they get to really eschew that second part with this series, I think. And it's really to its benefit. As it is for, I think, most series, when they get to ignore the the opinions of the people with the money. But that is the end of our pull list reviews. It's time for a pull list rec. Jay, do you have a pull list rec picked out?
Yeah, I do. But before I say it, I'm gonna remind people watching to tell us their pull list rec from the week down below in the comments. Doesn't have to be one of the books that we read this week. Just has to be a book that you read this week. But if it is one of the books we read, double points. I don't know what you're getting points for, but you're getting double of them.
You can redeem them at the end of the video.
I've stalled long enough to make my decision.
Perfect. What have you chosen?
But I have decided on Batman Dark Patterns issue 5 for my pull list recommendation. It is, I think, the best issue so far of the series, and it's just a phenomenal Batman issue.
Yeah, there were some good contenders this week, but we're gonna double up. I'm also giving it to Batman
Yeah, it
Dark
was a good
Patterns
week.
issue 5. It was a good
Okay.
week. We're both I feel like we're both just such core Batman fans at heart that when there's really good Batman on the line, it just works so freaking well.
Hard not to pick it.
It's
Yeah,
hard not to pick
but that's when we both recommend something. It means you are legally obligated to buy it. You've learned this, so let us know what you thought of Batman Dark Patterns after you bought it. And if you didn't buy it, what the hell, man? Rude.
If you didn't buy it, I've taken all of your points. I'm sorry. No points for you.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, they don't really do anything, but it's still better to have more.
Exactly. But
hey,
you can get even more
what
points.
We're going to be reviewing next week.
Yes, I do. We are going to be jumping down to Batman and Superman World's Finest for issue 38, which is the tie-in to the Justice League Unlimited book. If you want our thoughts on more Justice,
I think
Batman
it's the We Are
World's
Tomorrow
Finest,
event, I believe is what it's called.
I think so. But if you want more Batman and Superman World's Finest, check out, like, almost a year ago at this point, probably, we did a full review on the first volume of it that it's somewhere in the back catalog. We'll also be reading Daredevil Unleash Hell, number 4, Nightwing, number 125, Titans, number 22, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, number 8, and Buried Long, Long Ago, number 1. But Jay, if they don't want to wait that long to hear from the script heroes, where else can they find us?
They can check out our Absolute month 6 episode that went up recently. That's going to be the start of all the new Absolute titles. So you're going to want to check out our thoughts on that. We also give full recap. So if you don't have time to read all 6 issues and you want to jump in for next month, you can instead watch our 50-minute video, I think it is, and get caught up on all of those books. If you want to see us in the future, you don't want to watch something in the back catalog. That's old news. If you want the new news, you should watch the old news, though. Don't let me discourage you. It's good stuff. This Saturday, we have the Strange Saturday Super Show. We had to move it from this past weekend due to some scheduling stuff, but it's still happening, and it is going to be the book that Katie chose for this month, Bad Reception. Do you want to give the people a quick rundown of what that book's about?
Yeah, so Bad Reception is the story of the celebrity wedding of the century and the murders that happened there. No cell service at this wedding reception and plenty of murder service. Just how strange it gets on Saturday.
Yeah. But if you don't want to get strange with us on Saturday, then we'll at least hopefully see you next week.